sorts of interesting interviews that are there. Today, I'm very happy to have a client of mine with me. Everyone say hi to Kimberly Radaker Bays. That's a lot to say. Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Gene?
I'm doing very good. Kim and I were just talking that we got together toward probably the middle of 2015 at some real estate event. And then we did our first deal together in 2016. And we've been doing, Kim doesn't do a deal every 4 weeks. She does big deals. And if she does 2 a year, that's pretty good. So Kim, why don't you tell us what your background was before you got into this business, and why did you become a syndicator of all things?
So I graduated from University of Iowa with a finance degree, and probably more of a rarity these days than not, but I actually used my degree to sell, or at least some of the stuff that I learned in college in my day-to-day life. And so my original kind of career was in the 401k and retirement plan space, designing plans, doing all the administration on them, making sure that they stayed in compliance with all the tax laws. So that was kind of my first career, and then started investing actually in single family before we moved into multifamily. So started in single family, got comfortable with real estate, decided to sort of flip apartments, if you will. And so started purchasing, we bought the first multifamily in 2011. And so we have now purchased since then 22 assets in total, and we have sold 11. So we have 11 right now as it sits today. And I expect 2021 to be a pretty active year for us in terms of additional properties that we sell, and hopefully finding some good ones to buy as well.
That's great. Now, in reading your biography, it says that you started with 2 employees and now you have 160 employees. Why don't you tell us, you're a little different than every other syndicator that I work with, because you have a real value add proposition with some of the activities that the people in your company do. Why don't you explain that to us?
Sure. So we actually have self-managed since the very beginning, which I think gives us just a lot more insight and control, ability to make kind of small, quick decisions on things. And so have really enjoyed that piece of it. And then when we were working on our second project, we actually went over to China and established some relationships with vendors over there. And so we also have a materials import company, which has some stuff still from China. Some things have relocated now to other markets that are less tariffed, if you will. So that's really given us a competitive advantage in terms of picking out what it is that we want to do to the properties and really getting that done at the most reasonable cost possible. We also have a construction team in-house. They're all direct W-2 employees, but they do all of the interior renovation in our unit. So all of the, installing the new faucets, light fixtures, hanging the ceiling fan, what is all done in-house by our team as well. And so that also gives us additional control over the process, ways to really save extra money, be able to pass because we pass all of those things through pretty much at a loaded cost. At costs that are far below what we would have to pay if we were paying general contractors or just buying, supplies from a different vendor. We're able to really kind of boost the value add by having all of those pieces in-house.
So when you did your first syndication, raising money from other people to help you buy a property, what triggered that?
I was part of a real estate investment group. So I guess that was kind of a natural path, kind of where I got my start. But basically, because of the the first property we bought was 77 units. So we only had 6 passive investors on there. Nobody was more than $100,000. There were some that were even $25,000 because we weren't looking to, I think we had a total capital raise of $700,000 or something like that. So it wasn't a whole lot of money. But we did really want to, but we didn't have all of the money and all of the credit and liquidity remaining on the side in order to do that ourselves. So we needed to have one additional guarantor and then raise the last couple $100,000 in capital from a handful of investors. And so we started very small. It was only
Well, that's
6,
how,
but
that's how I started too. And the answer to that question I get in almost all of these interviews is, oh boy, I found a property, but I don't have enough money to buy it myself. So I think I'll reach out and bring money in from other people, and all of a sudden I'm a syndicator. You were lucky because the group that you were with had educational events and educational outings and things that really taught you enough to help you lead up to being a lead syndicator, and that's invaluable. That's invaluable.
Absolutely.
I still do a lot of business with the people that you would know in that group, and they're still doing that. One of the funny things that I have coming out of that group is I have people who call me and say, I'm in 26 deals as a passive, and I'd like now to be a lead syndicator. And my answer is, why? Don't do that. Aren't you're making a fortune being in 26 of those deals as a passive, and you have your life. If you go on to be a syndicator, I'm not sure you'll make a fortune, and I'm clearly certain you will lose control of your life, because that's what a syndicator does. It's much more about managing people than anyone thinks it is. I think it's just about the property. Well, no, there's a lot to it when you have 30 or 40 investors. Or on your deals, do you have deals where you have more than 100 passives?
Yes.
So that's, now you're in the people business, because, as I say, over 5 or 6 years, if you have 100 passives, someone's life is going to change, and they're going to come to you because Kim has their money.
Yep.
And if money is a solution to whatever changes in their life, they're going to come and they're going to ask you for the money. And that's a skill set to know how to deal with that question and be ready for that. That's very good. So you have done the last couple deals we worked with you, started out at least as a fund, started out with the opportunity to raise enough money and buy more than one property. Now, not every one of those syndications ended up with you buying more than one property.
There's one that only has one. All the rest of them that are currently still going had multiple properties in them, including the one that I sold, the properties we sold last year.
Well, I think that's
I really like the fund model. I found that to be a really helpful thing. It's just nice when you have a couple of assets in together. Because things don't always go as planned in the real estate world, in life, in anything else. So I've enjoyed, it's been really nice sometimes when you've got 2 properties that are performing really well, and one of them, the manager wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. You had to do a staffing change, different things, whatever. It's been a nice way to be able to have a down. It just gives a little bit more balance.
And it gives the investor diversification. Diversification probably geographically, and maybe even different types of apartment projects. And it's an acquisition strategy. Having all the money up front makes a difference when you go out and you're competing against the other cash buyers that are there and the 1031 buyers that are there. And maybe even if times get tough, walking into the bank and seeing if they have any troubled assets that you can buy and you can close quickly. Yes. This year, with everything that's going on with COVID, I've had a number of experienced clients come to me and say, we're thinking about doing a fund. And I think generally they think there's blood in the streets, or there's going to be blood in the streets from this, and they can go out and make some raging buys. And I don't see that happening yet. Maybe it will happen, but I haven't seen that. Have you?
No, I mean, there are some coastal markets that got hit really, really hard. I mean, I've heard San Francisco, the rents are down 30 to 40%, things like that. But I mean, in Dallas, Fort Worth, things are more expensive today than they were last year, which was more expensive than in 2019. I mean, it is There has not been, I'm sure that somewhere out there, there is an owner that's actually really in trouble. But for the most part, most people have been paying rent. We've been able to get help for some of the ones that were struggling from some nonprofits locally. And really, realistically, I think the biggest thing is it's not even so much, the properties are hanging in there pretty well, but the bigger thing is the supply side of money has just gone completely crazy, particularly in like Texas multifamily, because anybody that owned strip malls before, or that was in hospitality and owned a hotel, or owned, large office buildings or something where everybody's working closely on top of one another. So there's all of that money kind of getting added into the multifamily space on top of, additional money coming in from the coast and from other areas.
No, that's true. In this cycle, and I believe in my world, this cycle started about 2012, because we'd really come out of the 2008 and 2009 debacle. So during this cycle, other than one offering, all of our clients have raised all the money they've set out to raise. The one that didn't work was someone who wanted to do a blind pool to buy one property. And I said, that's never going to work, because even if you do raise the money to put in the bank, when you do buy the property and you tell the people about the property, they might not like it and they might want their money back. So you're selling twice. But a blind pool for one property just didn't work for this investor. So there's a lot of money. A lot of the people that you came up with as you started your business, as you well know, have gone on to do great things in the marketplace, and that's fine. So do you see any reason to change your business strategy over the next 2 or 3 years?
Strategy in terms of the general syndication, I don't really think is going to be anything that's going to be changing for us particularly. We are exploring some development opportunities, and we are exploring, we're repositioning a little bit in terms of age of asset and areas, in certain areas that we're in, to try to, minimize extra unnecessary stress, I guess, if you will. There's a couple of the properties that we've owned previously that were in some more challenging areas. And so we're trying to get the stuff that we're looking at now, even if it's a little bit more expensive, trying to get stuff that doesn't require armed guards every night.
Yeah.
Has been one of our current strategies. Those properties have been very, very good to us, and hopefully we've been very, very good to them. But it is, we're getting to a place where we'd like a little bit more stability in that. And then also just kind of watching kind of locations and things like that in terms of how working with this, how difficult it is or easy it is to work with the city.
Mm-hmm.
So really targeting cities that we have been able to build great relationships with, and avoiding some of the ones that have been more challenging and are more likely to just show up on your property and be like, yeah, I want this whole retaining wall redone.
Right.
Well, that's going to cost $300,000 and it's still functioning. I don't care. I want it done. So anyway, I'm trying to be a little more selective in that. And also, like I said, exploring some development opportunities.
Would you change asset class? Would you build something other than multifamily?
No, I'm going to stick with multifamily.
Good.
No.
I have quite a few people who are branching out from multifamily. None of them do as large a deal as you do, but they are branching out, and generally they're going either into mobile home parks or self-storage.
Okay.
And I was in the self-storage business for a long time. There's only one bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And no one sleeps there at night if you police it well.
Uh-huh.
So management wise, it was a lot. Any project I built, we built a live-in manager quarters and computerized gates and all that. So management's, a little bit different. I didn't tell you that I was going to ask you this question. And maybe you don't want to answer this question, but looking at you and thinking back to all the educational events I've given over my career, because I made my name under education-based marketing.
Mhm.
Now I always looked around in the room and I always saw, 38 men and one or two brave ladies. Why do you think, this is really off the topic, why do you think there aren't as many lady syndicators as there should be? That's just my point, because you guys have all the money. You have control of all the money. Why the hell don't you go out there and do it? You have any idea about that?
I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it wasn't as encouraged, but I think it's very, very possible. There's a lot of women that are in real estate. Probably some of them are just, smart and decide they want a more peaceful life than that which you get from having 100-person syndications.
Mhm.
So that could definitely be a piece of it. It has been shifting a little bit, but I do remember kind of my first NMHC going about 4 or 5 years, I guess 5 years ago. And I mean, I think women at that conference were about 1%, maybe. It's now probably closer to 10%, but it's still definitely, and I'm not really sure quite why. I think a lot of it is probably the brokerages. A lot of those tend to be more male driven, all in suits kind of thing, probably. And so that's probably some of where it stems from, but I don't really know why there aren't more women doing this. I know quite a few very successful ones that do.
Yeah.
There's a lot
And
besides me, but I don't know exactly why. I think probably it's a very full-time job for a long time. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate now. I've got a really well-established, high-functioning team. So there's a lot of the things that can happen without me personally having to do them anymore. But it took a long time to get it to a size and scale and ability where you could get the talent to really hand stuff off. And so, especially in the short term, I'm somebody that's just getting started, it dominates your life pretty effectively for a while.
I think it does. I think it does. Well, the last real question I have for this interview, and once again, thanks for taking your time and doing this with me. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
What advice would you give a rookie, someone who is thinking about doing a syndication and hasn't done one yet? What advice?
I think the biggest thing would just be to really think through what it is that you're doing and what your plans are. The level of responsibility that it takes to be in charge of and have kind of ownership of hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars of other people's money is an extraordinary responsibility. And so it's something that can't be taken lightly, and it's something that shouldn't be taken lightly. And it is really, really stressful at times when things aren't all going well. And when you have, pandemics and election things and different things go in all sorts of different directions, that can be a complicated time, because it isn't just you that you're responsible for anymore. You're actually responsible for the results that you're creating for other people. So I think don't take that lightly, and do a really good gut check-in with yourself as to whether or not that's a level of stress that you want and can handle in your life, for sure. And then the other big thing in terms of how I structure my offerings is I've tried to make sure that the way that I'm compensated perfectly aligns me with the investor's goals as well. So if you can try to set it up so that regardless of what in your own self-interest, that's actually what's best for everyone, I think is a really important piece of it too. I see a lot of deal structures where, you get large upfront acquisition fees, but then it shifts back the other direction for a long time and then kind of shifts back again. And so that's one of the other things I would think about, is just really make sure that whatever structure it is that you get, that it is a fair structure. And the best way that I've been able to sort of determine fair is that we all win together or we don't. And so those would be my kind of pieces of advice for people getting started.
Those are great pieces of advice. A lot of the people say that this is not a do-it-yourself a business, and having a team is real important. So when you did your first syndication, you already had 2 people?
I mean, we literally, the maintenance guy and a manager.
Okay.
That was the only 2 people. It was just the actual on-site staff, and then everything else has grown from there.
I tell people call me and ask me to review an offering that they might invest in. And I don't do that, but I always give them the questions that I think they should ask. And the very first question is, look at who the manager is. And whether it's an LLC or whatever it is, if it's really just one person, I would be hesitant to invest, because my line is, Kim, I've got my $50,000. I'm happy to give it to you. But what happens if something happens to you?
Right.
And I think I have been the replacement general partner manager in 7 deals in my life, where people have come to me and said, the person who was doing it, the team that was doing it, can't do it anymore for us for one reason or another. Only one person died. There are other reasons that the manager falls down on the job. And that's devastating to the investors, because they're not going to take it over by themselves.
Right.
That they didn't buy in to do that. Well,
Right.
I'll just vote and pick someone. Okay,
Yeah.
no, I don't think that's it. We had one project actually in 2019, where a guy came to me and he was going to do a mobile home park of about 700 units with the ability to build another 400. And he was going to do it himself. And I said, no, you've got to have someone else, because, the bank's going to require someone to sign stuff. And if you're not there, who's going to sign and all this? So he grudgingly picked a young person in the company, and they split the manager entity 90-10. And within the first 6 months, he got pneumonia and died.
Wow.
So now this younger person steps in. The investment didn't miss a beat. The younger person needed a lot of hand-holding and all that. And now I'm wrestling with the younger person saying, okay, you've got to go out and find someone and bring someone in that entity, because, there's COVID going on out there, and you could be gone in 30 days. So, and I'm getting a little pushback on that, but I still think I'm right on that. So a team is a good approach. Well, that's about all I have. Once again, I appreciate it. We're going to we'll broadcast this on a Tuesday at noon California time in the next couple of weeks, and it'll go on our YouTube channel, and everyone will be interested in what you have to say. And thank you. I hope when I get to Texas sometime, we're going out and about, and I'll get a chance to see you, Kim.
That would be great.
Okay.
Nice to at least see you virtually for now. So
yeah, that's for sure. I'm 72. My hair's getting a lot grayer than when you met me.
So is mine too. But I got
okay. Bye.
Bye.